strikeouts in a game. 20.
Swung on and driven to deep left. And a hit. Number 8. Yankees win. Yankees win. Bernie Williams homers deep in the left field seat to lead off the 11th inning on a 1-run finish. And the Yankees beat the Orioles 5-4 to win Game 1 of the American League Championship Series. Burn, baby, burn. He's done it again.
Deep left. There it goes. Soaring into history. He's done it. He has done it. 62. Aaron Judge is the American League single-season home run leader. The AL King. Case closed.
What is going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Ladderquente here, back at it again. As you saw in the introduction there, we are continuing our series here, The State of the Franchise. From championship glory to rebuilding years, every team has a story. And today, the story that we are discussing is that of the Washington Nationals. And I'm honored to bring on my guest, Talk Nats writer, Andrew Lang. So what's going on, man?
Well, we just had some news break about 2 hours ago that Kyle Finnegan was coming back. We were on top of that story for actually a few weeks. It wasn't a well-kept secret, but now it looks like it's finally official. As Mike Rizzo said, he was waiting for him to say yes. There were numbers out there, and he said it takes two to tango. So I guess Finnegan said yes today.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll dive into that momentarily. Now, as we begin this series, I always like to get kind of a gut reaction and a retrospective. How do you think the Nats season went in 2024?
To be honest, I was a little bit disappointed because they won 71 games in 2023. I had expected or hoped for a couple more impact signings, and they went kind of for these upside $3 to $6 million deals, and they got guys like Nick Senzel, Joey Gallo, and people like that. And Jesse Winker was about the only one that worked out. Eddie Rosario was cut. There were just guys. It was like wasting money because they were just, DFA'd and pushed aside. So there was a lot of money wasted. The Nats ended up winning 71 games. So they put in the same one-loss record that they had in 2023, but it wasn't the giant step forward that we had hoped for. And we'll see. I mean, they did a lot of what I call addition by subtraction, getting rid of a lot of the dead weight they got rid of. If you're into Fangraphs and analytics, the Nationals got rid of 5.6 negative WAR from their last year's roster. Some people would say, well, there's 6 wins right there. They should be at 77. But for some reason, Fangraphs has taken what they have right now in starting pitching, and they're only giving them about a 9 WAR value. Well, last year, the starting pitching was 13 WAR. So there's another 4 wins. So I'm feeling pretty good. I think the Nationals could really surprise. And of course, I've already bet the over on Vegas. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
No, for sure. Definitely a lot to look forward to. So now you mentioned Kyle Finnegan coming back into the fold. And as we look at some of those acquisitions that were made by the Nats this offseason, Soroka, Josh Bell, Ahmed Rosario, Nathaniel Lowe, which one of those moves or one of the others that were made by the Nats do you think is going to have the most impact for the team in 2025?
I think it's going to be a combo deal. And I think Nathaniel Lowe, being a 2023 Gold Glove winner, really solidifies the corner. And believe it or not, I like the Paul DeJong $1 million signing. He put in
Yep.
his final 2 months, made a switch to third base with the Royals. First time he's played that professionally. He did play it, I think, a game or two with the White Sox, and he had some minor league experience, but that was it. He had mostly been a shortstop. And if you're into OAA, which is outs above average, put out by StatCast, I mean, his numbers were crazy good. He put up in the last 2 months a +6 OAA. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
Especially at third base. I mean, you're talking extrapolated out. I mean, come on, a +18. That's crazy. That's what Jacob Young put up in center field. And that's, to me, that's another really good number that I went through and I wrote a story about. Defensive stats alone, the Nats were, depending on what you looked at, bottom 5 in defense. What if they went up to top 5 in defense? We're looking at, by our numbers, and we have them about maybe +60, believe it or not, in defensive runs saved, because they were so bad. They have a chance to be so good now, adding they got Dylan Cruz now, will be a full season. He was fantastic in
Yes, he was.
a month. Gold Glove winner last year in the minor leagues. Jacob Young, I think, should have won the Gold Glove. David Martinez of the Nats agrees. So does Cruz. So moves like that, you got to say, this is going to be a really good defensive team, and that's going to help the pitching.
100%.
So if you look at FIP, FIP, fielding independent pitching, the Nats were 9th best in baseball last year. Now, that's probably a stat I see you shaking your head.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
pretty darn impressive.
Very impressive, especially for such a
ERA
young.
sucked because their fielding was horrific. So when you're not getting the balls, so on the bad side, you probably know this if you look at OAA. Who was the worst fielder in baseball? It was CJ Abrams, Washington Nationals at shortstop. He was the worst, -17. So it almost, you had CJ Abrams on one side, you had Jacob Young on the other side, and they kind of canceled each other out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a problem, but I think Mike Rizzo got it right, and it was great to hear he was on MLB Network radio yesterday. He's their general manager. He made a point to say how much the defense was going to be better, and we're just really in analytics at Talk Nats, and it totally makes sense. You don't even have to BS the numbers. I don't understand why Fangraphs again knock down the pitchers.
Yeah.
It looks like a better pitching staff to me. I don't know if you're a Mike Soroka fan. Basically, they traded Mike Soroka for Patrick Corbin.
Yeah, which was only going to be a net positive there.
That's what we think. So do we think the Nationals are going to win, 90 games? No. But I'm thinking just in different projections, if everything goes right, if everything goes just simply like it did last year, which was a 71 win year, you take out the addition by subtraction and add in, these players. I think 78 wins, maybe more.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good squad. Now, one of the things that impacts all teams going forward is injury concerns. So one of the biggest pieces for the Nationals that is an injury concern right now is Josiah Gray.
Yes.
Is he going to be the biggest injury impact for the Nationals this year, or is there another player that you have in mind that's a bit concerning?
Well, we're not even counting Gray at all because of when he had his Tommy John surgery, and he only made 2 starts last year, and they they weren't great because obviously his elbow was bothering him at that time, and then he shredded it, and it wasn't completely detached. Tried to make his way back, so it prolonged when he had the surgery. So we didn't have him last year. Not counting on him this year. Kate Cavalli, who is top prospect pitcher, depth. Him, I'm a little bit worried about because he missed all of last year and was supposed to be back last year from his Tommy John. Mason Thompson also returning as another 60-day IL coming back from Tommy John. The only thing that was a surprise coming into spring training, Travis Sakura, who is another top pitching prospect, wasn't supposed to pitch at the big leagues, but he had a hip injury and needed some minor surgery. He'll be out for a couple months. And then James Wood is the one who is out right now. They only think for a few days in spring training, so we'll see how that goes. He has quadricep tendonitis.
Yeah, he's going to be a pivotal piece for sure for this team coming up.
Yeah, so I would say versus last year at this time, the Nationals are looking better because they have the depth. They did not have the depth last year, and the year before it was when they had injuries, it was devastating because they had very little depth, especially in starting pitching. So as far as that goes, I think the Nationals are in better shape than a lot of teams because now they have Soroka and they brought in Ogasawara from Japan.
Yeah.
We'll see where he goes. And then they have the rookies, DJ Hers and Mitchell Parker. So there's literally 7 names, not even including Josiah Gray or Cavalli. They have 7 names competing for 5 spots.
Yeah, which makes for a much easier time to try and fill in innings throughout the course of a major league season.
Exactly.
Now, one of the more fun aspects of this particular series is we like to look and ask for an X factor for each team. So who do you believe is going to be the X factor for the Nationals, and what does that look like in terms of success, and what is that success for that player or part of the organization?
I think the X factor, I'd probably say, I think of X factors, and we'll see if I have it the same way as you, is kind of that player who's a surprise and really gives a jolt to the team. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it can be that, or it can be the person that's most impactful to the organization.
Well, most impactful would be CJ Abrams, I think. There at shortstop, he had a absolutely earned all-star first half of the year, and second half of the year just fell off. He hit below 200 after, I think, July 3rd, 4th, somewhere around there. But I was going to say Jacob Young, just if he can get the power going. I mean, this kid has the defense, he has the speed, the hit tool, hit 256 last year. So we wrote an article about what 1 extra hit a week would mean for Jacob Young. And then we hear on MLB Network Radio, Rizzo talking about, well, if he can get his OBP up to 350, 360, which is exactly what was in our article. I mean, we said 350. So we're hoping he can do that. We saw Trey Turner with Washington, very similar in build and the speed and all that. He got it going. He was backspinning baseballs. It was really impressive. So what did Jacob Young do today? Hit a home run in spring training.
It's a good sign.
Yeah. The first home run for the team this spring. And if you ever go to the East Coast of Florida for spring training, the wind just always seems to be blowing in, and it really distorts the home run numbers. So to see him kind of cut through it, that was impressive. So he would be certainly him and Abrams. I mean, if those two have monster years, look out.
Definitely.
And then some would say Dylan Cruz, kind of struggled with the slider. If he could get going, obviously on paper, potential 5-tool player, supposed to be a superstar. He's another one, but I really was impressed with his defense and his base running. So he brings that, and we just need to see him connect with a few sliders, and we'll feel much better. We know he can hit fastballs.
Definitely. Now, in my preparation for this particular series, kind of going through and evaluating each team, to me, the person in the organization that I think is kind of the X factor for the Nationals is Mike Rizzo himself. I think that what he does with this team in terms of allowing the young players to come up and get those opportunities, but also augment that with some veteran presence, and what he could potentially do if this team really does start to rise up the ranks in terms of getting those wins in this division, that it is going to be competitive. I think that he could provide this team with kind of that next step, especially if they start to surprise some people and play towards a wild card spot. So for me, I kind of have Mike Rizzo in terms of what we know he's been able to do in the past when the team kind of rises up, and if he can do it again.
That's pretty good. He probably like to hear this. So that's a really nice compliment. So
Yeah.
some would say he's done more with less. When you take out Steven Strasburg out of the payroll, that's $35 million on the payroll. He's not playing. Essentially today, the Nationals are at $99 million of CBT payroll.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a lot, but like the Orioles did 2023, who were at, what were they, 62 million or something?
Something low like that.
They won 101 games. It's that young team where you don't have the old high paid veterans on there. So I think even though it's not a one-on-one comparison, maybe more so to the 2022 Orioles, who were pushing towards winning and had Rutschman. I mean, the Nationals, to me, have more top prospects than the Orioles had before they brought up some of their current players, that they built around Adley Rutschman.
Yep, I agree very much so. I think that there's a lot to like about this young squad for Washington. Now, in speaking of some of those young guys, MLB.com has Dylan Cruz as the top prospect for the organization. For those that may not know, may not have paid attention, tell us a little bit about Dylan and kind of if there's another prospect that you're excited to see what he can do.
Well, definitely Dylan Cruz, because he's still listed as a prospect and will be a Rookie of the Year candidate. I mean, again, absolute 5-tool potential. He is a kid who loves baseball. He's just got it all. I saw him play at LSU. We were smart enough. We knew the Nats had the number 2 pick overall 2 years ago. So we were beat writers with LSU, and we got to interview him, which was fantastic. Him and Skeens. We just knew it was going to be either or. So for me, it's kind of like knowing him for 2+ years,
right,
and kind of the people around him. And he's surrounded himself with some wonderful people. He was so loyal to LSU. It was really good to see. And so I think those intangibles, he's a leader. He just says the right things, and he's a hard worker and just a genuine, really good guy. So put that together. Like I said, if he can show that he can clobber sliders, that's kind of been his kryptonite so far. If he can do that, he hit one into the outfield today, so he did connect. He'd been working on it. That to me will definitely change his arc. If he can get that going, I'd say I feel really good about him.
For
and
sure.
There's my dog. As I said, she may come in here.
It's all
good. There's certainly Brady House, who is the Nats' next top prospect on the positional side. And he's kind of what we look at as the third baseman of the future. Was taken out of high school, was at one point before the draft, he was looked on as being the top high school player, and just fell to the Nats. It was pretty good that they got him, and he came into spring training putting on some more muscle, and I've seen that kid hit. His problem too is consistency. 2 years ago, he had a back injury. No issues last year, but he went through some slumps, which definitely impacted his final numbers. And some of the evaluators actually took him out of the top 100 prospects. He was 6 months ago. He was a top 100 prospect.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned Sakura, who had the hip thing. Harlan Susana, who was another key piece of that trade with San Diego for Juan Soto that brought in the Hall. And then Robert Hassel is another one. He also came off the top 100. And when you look at it, he had some wrist injuries. He had his hamate removed and then had a subsequent wrist injury. So he played really well in the Arizona Fall League. And as of today, he also hit a home run today. As of today, he's definitely the Nats' number one player in spring training as far as stats goes. I mean, hit in the first game a ball off the wall with bases loaded that won the game. Wasn't a walk-off because the Nats were visitors. And then on Sunday, I think he had another double, a diving catch. So his stats are pretty good. So we'll see. It's spring training, but a lot of positives. I think more of the Nats farm system than some of the evaluators. I think Baseball America had the Nats farm system. You can double check. I think 12 to 14, which seems to be where most of the evaluators have put the Nats.
For sure. But, as we know, sometimes those evaluations don't necessarily see the whole picture, and especially any sort of development that could be happening. And for Washington, they've, been able to bring up seemingly year after year after year talented prospects, especially what we've seen from that outfield, with the aforementioned Juan Soto, Bryce Harper before that. So definitely an intriguing set of prospects coming up from the Washington Nationals organization. Now, as we kind of jump into the next section here, we always like to get a bold prediction for each team. So what would you say as a bold prediction for the Washington Nationals in 2025?
The boldest prediction is that they become a wild card team because everything comes into place. And then Mike Rizzo is a buyer at the trade deadline, and everybody is shocked. And that's kind of the 2023 version of the Baltimore Orioles. Nobody had them winning 101 games. I don't see how the Nationals could win 101 games, but 86, 87 games, why not?
Yeah, for sure.
It is a tough division.
100%, a very tough division. But we're in lockstep. That was my bold prediction as well, that they continue to play very well and battle for a wild card spot even into deep in late September. So I very much believe in the young core that is being built there in Washington. So yeah, we're on the same page on that one.
Nice.
Now, as we kind of look at the team and at the organization, what do you think is the biggest question facing the team and the organization in 2025?
I think the biggest question is really just putting it all together. There's players that have to step up. So Dylan Cruz is one of them. He's going to have to step up and show that he's better than what we saw with the bat. Again, no question with defense or running the bases, but he's going to have to show that he can hit. He's playing on the corner outfield. You want to see numbers with 750 OPS, 800 plus. So he's going to be huge. CJ Abrams, like I said, horrible second half. Horrible. Hitting below Mendoza, has to do better than that. Those would be probably my biggest concerns. In normal years, I mean, going into last year, my biggest concern was pitching, and turned out much better than I ever could have expected. So.
So that kind of leads me to the opposite end, and kind of what's the biggest frustration for Nationals fans going into this season?
Well, if you read at least the TalkNet's Twitter, you would see that it's all about they never spent enough money. They didn't get Alex Bregman. They didn't get Pete Alonso, and they'll throw out names. And while Mike Rizzo spent about $50 million in new acquisition money, which is a lot, he spread it around with depth. So that's kind of how he approached it. But the fans, they equate everything to dollars. I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
I agree.
Look at the Royals last year. They spent $161 million. The Nats are what, 27 million away from there. So dollars don't really equate. Winning equates and what those players do. And the 2012 Nationals won 98 games, won the NL East, shocked everybody, and they did it with a super low payroll, a team very similar to what we have here. They had Ryan Zimmerman and Jason Worth as their most expensive guys. They had a whole bunch of players that were on rookie contracts, like Bryce Harper was, and they had plenty of other players, Jordan Zimmerman, and Gio Gonzalez was actually above league minimum, but they didn't have many. Edwin Jackson, just pulling off the top of my head, but it wasn't an expensive payroll that year. And as you know, what happens when you have a young team and they start going through arbitration, and all of a sudden that kid who was at league minimum this year, 760,000, he may be in 5 years making 20 million. So we saw that with Harper. We saw that with Soto. We saw that with Anthony Rendon. It's going to go up. That's what happens with good players. They are going to get paid. And that's the way baseball works. But the fans, getting back to your question, they equate everything to money, and I don't necessarily agree with that. It's dollar war is important. So last year, Nathaniel Lowe was worth, according to Fangraphs, $22.5 million. He's on second-year arbitration. The Nationals are paying $10.3 million. So that would be $12 million of kind of free money, because you got a player well below what his WAR is. Same thing with Paul DeYoung. Then there's Jacob Young. You could say James Wood. CJ Abrams is still getting league minimum. He'll be arbitration eligible next year. So there's another one. These are guys making $760,000. The entire outfield are all at $760,000.
Yeah.
Right
I mean, it
before that.
definitely helps with, keeping the payroll lower. Having that talented youth to play every day definitely will help with that.
Yeah, and I don't know if fans grasp that. James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Jacob Young, the fourth outfielder, Alex Call, you're talking $3 million for 4 players who are probably, if all goes right, they should put up combined over 10 WAR.
I agree. Yeah. In doing this series, we've had conversations with many teams and many fans and pundits for different squads. And that's kind of a growing sentiment where fans, as you said, equate, dollars spent to whether or not the team is trying. And it's not necessarily how much you spend, but the allocation, as you said, of those resources. So I definitely agree with you on that. I think that that's a growing frustration around the league, but I think it's kind of misplaced in certain situations. And with what the Nationals did, we spoke a little earlier about some of the acquisitions that were made. I like a lot of the moves that they made this offseason. And I think that with the young core that they have, it's really going to help this team blossom all throughout the 2025 campaign.
Agree.
Now, as we look at the team itself and the offense for the Nationals in 2025, how would you grade out the offense?
I would grade out the offense right now because they did not get somebody like Bregman. They got Lowe, who, again, he's won a Silver Slugger. He did not break 20 home runs last year. Still a really good player. I thought Bregman was the guy. I'm an Alex Bregman fan, but I know that was going to take a ton of money. So I think with kind of where they are in their arcs and being so young with, again, Wood and Cruz and Young, CJ Abrams being kind of the offensive leader, at least for the first half last year, and leading the team in home runs. They bring in DeYoung, who would have led the team last year. He hit 24 homers, but he's not Alex Bregman. He strikes out a lot, and not like what he did. He was, remember, a top prospect and top player coming in, runner-up rookie of the year with the Cardinals. And then during the COVID year, he fell apart, and nobody knows why. And finally last year was the first sign that, hey, this guy's maybe figured something out. So I would say probably a little bit below average. I'd say, yeah, C minus, but I could be talked into, somebody may say C plus. It could end up, again, if everything goes right, it could be a B plus offense for sure. But they were last in homers and just not a great offensive team last year. And many things that were supposed to click did not click.
Yeah. So I'm actually a little higher on the offense. And I kind of, in my preparation, went through and looked at the squad and looked at how young the talent is. And I did kind of equate it to the way that Baltimore was a few years ago. And I look at this team as kind of playing with house's money. No one's really expecting much from them. And, you have all of this young talent in that outfield. You brought in some veteran guys that can kind of play with no real expectation in a Nathaniel Lowe, in a Paul DeYoung. And so I gave this offense a B minus. I think it might be a little bit hopeful, but I just think that with the young talent kind of coming in with no real expectations, they can just kind of go out and play their game. Obviously, it's going to be when that third look come around, being able to make those adjustments. But I think if they can get off to a hot start, this team can really surprise some people. So for me, the offense, I have it graded out as a B- right now.
Well, Mike Rizzo is loving everything you're saying so far. That's pretty good. And not again, I'm not being a pessimist here. I'm just saying where they kind of graded out from last year, where they were a D. It was really the pitching itself that carried the team last year.
So now, on the opposite side of things, where do you see the pitching side of it?
I'm going to give the starting pitching a solid B. I think they are way better based on the analytics. I mean, again, they graded out, even with Patrick Corbin, as bad as he was, they graded out 9th and 5th, which is incredible. 393. I'm pretty sure I'm pulling all these numbers, but I'm pretty sure it was 393, just fractionally ahead of the Orioles, which means, again, if the defense was better, that could have been their ERA. And Mackenzie Gore definitely put in some ace performances. Jake Irvin, I don't know if you're familiar with him. These aren't household names for a lot of people.
No.
Jake Irvin was an all-star candidate through the first week of July. They had him pitch that one game at the beginning of July, 8 innings, and he just never looked right after that again. It was like he had a terrible second half of the year. Just did not look right. So I don't know if he was just spent. We've seen that before,
Yep.
where the innings are, like a bad odometer and just add up. So he's better than what the final stats look like, because his first half of the year was really good. DJ Hers and Mitchell Parker, both really positive surprises. They were really good on most of their numbers. And if the addition of Michael Soroka, could you imagine if he got anywhere to what he was his rookie year?
For sure.
I mean, his rookie year, he was runner-up for rookie of the year, and he was an all-star in his rookie year.
Yep.
So if he could get back to that, this could be this is that upside where you go, if X, Y, and Z happens, it's the sky's the limit. So,
and what about with the bullpen? How do you see that grading out?
Well, it's nice to have Finnegan today. I just wish they had gotten one more great arm in there. Somehow Rizzo seems to figure it out if it's a winning year. I mean, look what he did in 2019. He got Daniel Hudson, just incredible. Started the year, he paid up. He got Trevor Rosenthal and Kyle Bearclaw, and neither one of them made it through the year. And but they did get World Series rings, and it was Daniel Hudson and Sean Doolittle carrying things.
Yes, they did.
And it's incredible what you can do when you have just arms that just step up and make these close games turn them into saves. So having Finnegan back, I definitely feel better. He seems to be an adrenaline junkie where you give him a save situation. He's a lot better in save situations than he is in regular situations.
For sure.
He had a really good conversion rate in saves last year, even though his numbers weren't the best of his career.
And so as we kind of go through this series and we look towards the divisional ranking predictions, earlier you mentioned 78 wins as the total that you foresee for the Nationals. Pacoda has you guys in 4th in the division with 74 wins, and Fangraphs has you in 4th in the division with 73 wins. Where do
Yes.
you kind of see the Nationals in the division? Where does that 78 win total really realistically put you guys?
I could see the Nats obviously in what Mike Rizzo called a behemoth of a division, because you got the Braves, you got the Mets, you got the Phillies. Fourth place does seem logically right. And on the other hand, you think, well, maybe there could be three wild cards from the NL East and the Nats sneak in. So even with fourth place, win 86 games, make it interesting. So we'll see. But I think again, 78 just seems to be the number that I'd like to see them win.
Yeah. So for me, I'm a little higher than that as well. Mike Rizzo is probably going to be my biggest fan after this, but I think with what the Nationals have done with giving this young core an opportunity, I'm looking at them as getting over 500. I think, maybe 82, 83 wins, fourth in the division, because as Rizzo called it, it is a behemoth of a division. But I think that there's a little more in the tank than what people are expecting. And I think that they're going to surprise some people that may overlook them and kind of not give them the respect that would be due. And I think they'll be able to pull out some wins that people aren't expecting. So I think 82, 83 wins is what I'm calling for Washington in this upcoming season.
I think again that's fair. When you look around and you say, well, the Phillies didn't have to do much. They had a good team. The Mets added Soto. Their pitching, I'd be a little bit concerned if I was a Mets fan.
100%.
I still
Especially
think
now with the injuries to Montas and to Manaya.
exactly. And look, they could win 92 games. That's certainly within the realm. And then you look at the Braves, everybody wonders with Strider coming back, most think that they're going to win the NL East. And that's all well and good, but a lot of the other teams throughout the NL and AL didn't do much. And now that you play everybody, the Nats need to win against the teams that they should win against.
Yep.
And that was something I believe, like the White Sox last year. I think the Nats only won 1 of 3 games against the White Sox, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the type of series you want to sweep. You need to beat those teams if you want to get a winning record. And they did clean up on the Marlins last year, which was definitely a good sign to see. And just do a little bit better against some of the better teams, and that's where again the surprise could be. I think again we're going to see with this better defense, kind of like the Royals. I compare it to the Royals. They're never going to spend top of the market, but they were top 3 in defense, and that's what to me. Their offense average-ish. Of course, they have Bobby Witt Jr., but the defense made the pitching look even better.
100%.
I mean, their pitchers look really good, and I'm looking at the Nats pitchers and going, this is exactly where the Nats pitching should be. And if you look at the Royals, their FIP and ERA were the exact same number. So their defense, in my opinion, probably made them a little bit better than what they were.
Yeah. And an improved defense, as we know, can help save something on the offensive side as well. Because when you're not having to cough up runs on the defensive side of the baseball, it means you have to score less on the offensive side.
Absolutely right. Win some of those 3-2 games. That's a sign of kind of old school baseball.
Yep. And a winning ball club, and that's how you end up with a winning record.
Absolutely. And I like that you feel that way. You're obviously a really smart guy and can see what a lot of the fans who are into the analytics is seeing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I deep dive into analytics as often as I possibly can. for sure.
Yeah, I'm an analytics nut. I'm a retired CPA, so this is what I do. I go through stats and try to find different things, and it's incredible. I mean, that's what somebody working in an analytics department. They are looking for that edge with analytics, adding a player who will enhance the team better, and that's what Rizzo did this year. And he said it. Better defense makes pitching even better. Common sense. We call it the new money ball.
Yep.
The Diamondbacks did it 2 years ago. They weren't that good last year, but they went to the World Series based on defense making their pitching look better, and they had kind of that run and shoot offense, just wreaking havoc, stealing bases, Corbin Carroll, and I think them to the Royals picked up on that, and
yes, they did.
Just built a better mousetrap. And I think that's what Rizzo, I don't know if that was his intention looking at the analytics, but this is what we've been focused on. And probably I'm glad our readers haven't gotten sick of it, because we've talked about it a lot this off season, and people were wondering, why do you want Paul DeYoung? And we're like, what that guy can do at third base, even though he strikes out a lot, 24 homers, defense, that's going to make the pitching look even better.
Yep. I 100% agree. Now, as we kind of wrapped up this show and this broadcast with the title of the series, where do you see the state of the franchise for the Washington Nationals?
Well, less than 5 years ago, the team won the World Series with the same GM, the same manager, a lot of people in the front office, the same owner. So if you did it once, you hope, and this is kind of the state of where we're at, if they spend when the team is good enough, if they have that same approach where they are willing to spend to fill in for a superstar or two, there you go. That's the state of the Nationals. I think they are turning the corner. Could look very similar, like I said, to the Royals if they decide to spend. That's going to be the key. If they don't, I think Nationals fans could be very unhappy going forward. Sure, winning 82, 84, 86 games, it is a tough NL East. But here is the one kicker that I like. The Phillies are getting old. Harper, we're talking getting to 33, 34 years old. When are they going to get to age regression? It should be about the time the Nationals get 2 more years forward, where the timing, and this is what the Nationals 2012, before that, it was the Phillies who owned the division.
Yep.
And what happened to the Phillies? They got old real quick.
Really
Ryan Howard and Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins. So you see it can happen. And while fans, no, they think it's going to go on forever. We thought it would have gone further than 2019. And with Scherzer and Trey Turner and Strasburg, when stuff happens, it's easy to look back in hindsight and go, oh, yeah, should have known that Strasburg was going to have a career-ending injury. I mean, nobody really thinks that
Can't
way.
see that.
What are they going to look at with the Phillies when these guys are 36 or 38 years old and one of them has one of those terrible injuries and go, oh, never should have signed that 13-year contract, right? Because that's the way fans are. They always turn it like, you should have known.
Yep.
So I think that's going to play to the Nationals' advantage, that these other teams are going to get old. And you look around and you go, okay, Mets, Lindor and Soto. Soto's young. Lindor, Alonso isn't exactly young right now. Their pitching staff, I could see them and the Braves just getting to a point where if they are not producing through the farm system and they're stuck with some big contracts, like we already know the Phillies are, they're carrying some players for a long, long time. And that's where I think the Nationals just maybe you win the division in 2 years where 90 wins takes the NL East because the other teams are on a regression.
For sure. Yeah, no, it definitely is going to be an interesting few years for the NL East and for the Nationals. But I want to thank you for joining me, Andrew. Let everybody know where they can find more content from you.
Absolutely. We're talknats.com, TALKNATS, all one word, .com. Twitter, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Threads. You can find us there. We stay active on Instagram with some stuff, but if they want kind of Talk Nats lives up to its name. There's a lot of talk going on. I mean, this morning during a spring training game, over 500 comments. It's really active on the site, and in the regular season, it'll be over 1,000 comments a day. It's got a really big community. It's very different than if you're somebody who's turned off by the negativity and the social media. Stop by Talk Nats because it's moderated and there's a lot of talk that feeds off of the articles where we get a little bit analytical, and it's been a lot of fun covering this all season. The Nats have added 11 players to the MLB roster, which is a lot of movement.
No, for sure. Definitely a fun time. So we definitely want to thank you for joining me on this particular episode. For everybody watching us on the YouTube side, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell for post notifications. So each and every time we drop new content, you will be alerted. Make sure you check out our Linktree link in the description below. It has all the pertinent details to the merch shop, the sponsor links, social platforms, and of course on the audio side. And if you are checking us out on the audio side of this platform, make sure you leave a 5-star rating review, as it does help us continue to grow this community. Once again, Andrew, I want to thank you for joining me and talking Nationals baseball here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace.